Hey everybody, welcome to Hear Us Out. I am Patrick.
And I'm Paul. How's it going?
Very good, my friend. I'm still a little bit under the weather, but we're not going to talk about it, so please forgive me if I cough in the microphone. Now, for everybody else out there who've just adjusted their headset in case I'm about to cough in your ears, keep that headset on or keep your speakers turned up because we have got one heck of a show for you. Because we're going to save you the one thing that money can't buy, and that is time. Everybody says there's so much good stuff. We've done whole episodes about how many brilliant movies there are and how there are too many TV shows that are of excellent quality. There's just not enough time in our lives to watch them. So, what's the greatest gift anybody can give you? It's telling you what not to bother watching, or, you know, teach a person to fish. They'll feed themselves for a lifetime. Give you some hints and tips as to how you can spot things that are probably not going to be worth your time. Also known as how to spot crap from 1,000 yards
Yeah.
without even watching it. These are some just some things we've noticed over the years, Paul, as good little indicators to say, you know what, that film mightn't be that good, no matter how it might have looked in the trailer. I think I might want to skip this one.
Yeah, and also we don't want to anyways incite to the fact that we dislike any of these actors or
No,
people that are involved in the movies or anything like that. It's just common kind of like signs in which a movie is not going to be as good as it possibly could be. So just highlighting that little part for us.
yeah, exactly. And for everybody out there in comment land, uh, I should say it right now. If you happen to be watching and enjoying anything that we do feel free to hit a like. And if you're not subscribed, because most of our viewers aren't subscribed, now would be a lovely time to hit subscribe. But more importantly than any of that, get into the comments and let us know what your red flags or yellow flags are, what the warning signs are for you that say, you know what, this is one that I have bad enough feeling about before I watch it. Um, and for some people, I know that'll be. Last time I asked a question like this, I just got a list of actors that people didn't like in the chat, and that's fine if that's what happens. So, Paul,
But
let's yeah, go for it.
I was going to say that tends to be more of a personal choice rather than an actual kind of like indictment towards a film because
Yeah.
like there are films out there of actors who I do not like, but I can't in any way argue that the film that they're in is in any way
Yeah.
bad. So,
Well,
um,
it already happened almost instantaneously. Our first commenter, and good evening, Brian. Good to talk to you. In quotes, starring Adam Sandler, and you know what? I can dispute that because I think Adam Sandler has about 5 or 6 really good movies. But he has a
he
hell of a lot
does.
more than 5 or 6 movies. Is I think the point.
I will say that my I do have the same thing as starring Adam Sandler, but it's only if like there's several other of his friends also involved in the project
Oh,
at the same time.
when isn't there?
Yeah, that's the thing because like there's been time the cobbler I thought was quite good. It was a little kind of like nice thing, but then like Grown Ups 2 and Grown Ups 1, it was just like, oh, his entire friends are all in this.
And I'll die on this hill. I really enjoyed Grown Ups, the first one. It's one of my guilty pleasures. It makes me laugh every time. I adore that film more than I would ever want to admit on the internet. So swiftly moving on. Um, first big warning sign that we'll throw up there is embargo date. So a review embargo, and all an embargo means for anybody, this exists in journalism and reporting for movies, for products, for all sorts of things. If you're launching something and you let somebody review it, so it can apply to tech as much as it can apply to movies. You'll let a certain number of critics or people get an advanced screening and say, okay, you can watch our movie, but we do not want you releasing your thoughts or releasing your review of the movie until X date. Now, the thing that's the giveaway here is how far away is X date from release date? So, Paul, traditionally a good movie, something the caliber of like Denis Villeneuve's Dune. I can't remember how long before the movie the review embargo lifted, but I think it was like a week and a half, 2 weeks, whatever. One of those good windows where they're happy. Reviewers are going to see this. Reviewers are going to love this, and then reviewers are going to let everybody know. By the way, get yourselves primed. Start buying your tickets now. It's going to be a big opening night because this is a great movie.
Yeah.
The warning sign comes in when you see a release date, and you can Google it. It's easy enough to find out what the review embargo date for a movie is if it's not too far away. But if you hear something in the news like, oh yeah, the screening happened, but the review embargo date doesn't lift until the same night as the film is released, or it's the night before the film being released, that's a really, really bad sign.
Yeah.
And it was one of the things, as excited as I was for the Marvels, and I kept holding out hope that it wasn't going to be bad. It was one of those ones where the nail in the coffin was, oh yeah, review embargo is pretty much day and date with the movie. So they didn't want anybody out there talking about it. And like the Transformers universe, they've made this almost a standard. They had a couple of movies that did well, and then I think they realized that Transformers movies, if you like them, are what they are. So
Yeah.
they don't need people reviewing them saying it's a masterpiece. Orson Welles is currently reanimating himself just to cry over Optimus Prime's soliloquy. It's a case that they know they don't need or want a whole load of bad press, because the people who are going to go and see the Punchy Robot movie are going to go and see the Punchy Robot movie. So
Yeah.
their distance between embargo and release, it's been negligible for like the last 3 or 4 movies, I think.
Yeah, and it's interesting that it sometimes becomes the standard for a franchise, in the sense of kind of just like a lot of people can see it as a kind of, oh, they want to keep everything close to the chest, but you don't, because a lot of reviewers will not overly kind of will not try to essentially spoil the movie for you. They'll just kind of give you a sense about how good the movie is and stuff like that, and how good the acting and certain elements of it. But when you embargo it essentially right up to the date, um, I can't see them kind of playing on it in the sense of, oh, we want to make it a mystery. It's just like,
Yeah,
yeah, what you're actually doing is just going, yeah, we don't know how you're going to react to the film well enough to let you release all your reviews, kind of thing. So we're just going to wait until the release date. And then, as you said, if they have it a week before, that's part of a massive marketing campaign where it's like
exactly.
we'll flood every Google, like, trends and everything like that with everything we can about this movie, because we'll have not only the studio and the marketing team sending out and pumping out advertisement for it, we also have like 1,000 of popular content creators and everything like that that are able to then what you
Exactly.
gonna say, do it, because I think we were embargoed for
Gran Turismo.
yeah, Gran Turismo,
Yeah, we got to
kind of
see
thing.
the early screening of that.
Yeah, we were embargoed, I think, for the day of release as well,
Yeah,
which we completely understood why,
yeah.
kind of thing.
But
So
and that's the thing. The more like so, there every studio is different, and every marketing team is a different approach. But you can really see the people who've made a movie and know that they have a hit on their hands by almost the complexity of the embargo that they'll have laid out. So there'll be the social media embargo will be different than the release of YouTube or print reviews. And sometimes the social media embargo will be even more nuanced than that, to say you're allowed to give impressions but no details.
yeah,
And that's usually supposed to be a bad sign. That's usually a good sign, because they're saying, okay, look, within 12 days of release, we actually want you saying, yes, we've got to see this movie. Yes, I'm not allowed to tell you any details or spoil anything about it. But what I am allowed to do is give you an impression. So I can be positive or I can be negative about it if I want. I can say that overall they've done a great job and I'm excited for this. You're allowed, do certain amount of things at different dates. And that's where the marketing people are like, we're so confident that what we've got is a hit. We're actually going to help you all be our PR machine, like you just said. And they can take that risk on a few people not liking it or not connecting, because they know the majority of reviewers are gonna like it or be
yeah,
positive.
yeah. Or if there's elements in which there's, yeah, like as in the gray area of kind of people going, I didn't like this, but I like this kind of thing. It's still positive in the sense of the grand scheme of movies,
Yeah,
kind of thing. Embargoes are also a useful tool because, which is you can build a sense of mystery up to a certain point, and then, as you said, once you get past that point, it's just like, oh no,
yeah,
this is getting, yeah, this is stretching too close to release date. This is getting bad,
yeah.
kind of thing.
And also there is the other side, because for every rule there's an exception, and that's going to keep coming up here. And sometimes it's a really brilliant, amazing sign that there is a big twist or something like that in a movie, where they will say, we want nobody reviewing any details of this movie in advance, a la Spider-Man No Way Home,
Yeah.
when it was a case of the other Spider-Men appearing in it. They didn't want anybody spoiling that for folks. So there you go.
But
Yeah,
usually as part of that, just to kind of give that, usually as part of that embargo, they do release some kind of like as in the marketing team or the studio will release some kind of like, oh, the reason we don't want to spoil, they come out with an explanation kind of
yeah.
thing, which puts everybody at ease. Whereas if it's just silence and the only information you get is like it's an embargo, you're kind of like, okay, well there you go.
Well, as Brian says in the chat here, oh yes, good one. No early screenings for review is a big one, and yeah, that's why we let out with it. It's a good sign that you don't want to necessarily. Again, you can tot these things up on your own little scorecard before you waste your time in the movie, and see maybe if 2 or 3 out of these 5 warning signs are there, then don't use up your time. Of course, it's not always going to be 100% right, but here's one, and this happens so often, Paul. As as I put it when we were talking, big stars in a movie that you've never heard of, and it was released recently. So how often have you sat down to a streaming service or something, and it's like, oh my god, there's like the top 3 actors in Hollywood in a movie I've never heard of, and hang on, it was released 6 months ago or last year. It's well, what the hell? And what I've got on screen is a small selection of Bruce Willis's more recent movies. And I mean a small selection. This isn't even all the movies from these years. I'm not picking on Bruce too hard. I love Bruce. But I think everybody knows he was producing quantity, not quality, before he hung up his acting boots. How many of these, Paul, from Assassin to Paradise City to Gasoline Alley, have you even heard of? Out
Uh,
out of Death. God, I didn't even spot there was one called Out of Death. Right.
uh, Cosmic Sin, I've heard of.
Okay.
That's probably the only one I've heard of.
And that's got Frank Grillo. You'll notice the other thing as well is there tends to be 2 names in any of this, and in fact, one of those is John Travolta in the top there. But these are the sorts of things. Michael Rooker is there. I spot his face. Gosh, there's a bit of everybody involved here. These are, we've talked about the contract movies before, Paul. The one for them, the one for you. These are where people quite often are fulfilling contractual obligations or doing something that will give them the contract they want to make the next thing that they do want. And again, I want to get Bruce off the screen because I hate it when I feel like I'm picking on one of my favorites. But that's a really good sign that, you know what, these movies, they're not all, I'm not all saying they're bad. But if you see it and you think, oh my God, I've just been asleep. I missed that, Bruce Willis and all these massive stars made a movie. It obviously came out and the whole world saw it and loved it. I just happened to have my fingers in my ears. You didn't. They were buried in streaming.
Yeah, and Bruce isn't the only one only actor that does this. Obviously, the famous one is probably Nick Cage, who did a lot of kind of
Yeah.
quantity movies for a brief period of time. But you've also got Lawrence Fishburne, Samuel Jackson is also known to pop up in a lot of movies, kind of thing. Um, you're showing there, which goes,
The Last Face, Charlize Theron, Javier Bardem. You don't get bigger people, and it's a Sean Penn film. Wasn't well received, didn't do particularly well at the box office. Most people haven't heard of it, and they're like, "Oh, but it must be great because it's got them in it."
yeah. So like it's a kind of category. No, sorry, it's a net thing where you've got a lot of actors who are kind of like plugging in and out, and they can do it for multiple reasons. They contractual obligations, as you said, want to get a certain movie, or the fact is that they are just it's just a kind of like they're not doing that. They don't have a current project, and they need
Yeah.
to keep up with kind of projects and stuff like that. So they take on something smaller, kind of thing. There's multiple choose reasons, but it also does instill the fact that it probably isn't a great movie.
And Paul, had you ever heard of the 10? Adam Brody, Rob
No.
Corddry, Famke Janssen, everybody is there. Gretchen Mol, Paul Rudd, Liev Schreiber. Yeah, that was, again, that's a movie about the 10 Commandments that flew under everybody's radar and is apparently not great. You got things with, how could you not know about Gary Oldman and Harrison Ford being in a movie together? And I didn't. I honestly had not heard of this until I went looking to see who's done some stuff that, my God, I've never heard of it. There's a star-studded cast. Apparently the movie is terrible, which, again, it plays into this. Just getting
So
started. Sorry, yeah, go for it.
just for the research of this topic, you sent me this. I watched that movie.
You watched Paranoia?
I watched Paranoia.
Get
It
the hell out of
is
here!
so mediocre. It
Oh,
is bad.
really?
Like
It's almost there, but never anywhere. Is it one of those?
it's like I wish for one, I wish Gary Oldman wasn't in the film. And not because I don't like Gary Oldman. I love
Because you
Gary
do
Oldman.
like Gary Oldman.
Give him such a Weasley kind of character that really doesn't like it doesn't play well with his kind of like I guess skill set.
Mm.
And he seems so out of place with the rest of the movie. Um Liam Hemsworth is probably so flatlined throughout the movie. Like I'm not going to give the review,
Yeah.
but it's just such a mediocre movie that it's just upsetting that some of the biggest names, Harrison Ford and Gary Oldman, are just in it, and you're just like, okay, this has to be someone, and they're barely in it as well, kind of thing. So
See, I've been burned so many times because I just think there's so many movies. Of course, I haven't heard of them all, and I'll see something like this on a streaming service and be like, oh, "Wow, I love that cast. Well, I love Gary Oldman and Harrison Ford, and in a war between kings, even a pawn can change the game." Just cheesy enough that I'll be like, you know what? If this thing is better than mediocre, it'll be worth my while. But I don't chance it anymore because it's time you don't get back. Although, bless you for watching it and doing the research. Again, just getting started. Morgan Freeman, Tommy Lee Jones, Rene Russo. Then we've got, good gosh, all the old knives. This is, you mentioned Lawrence Fishburne. All the old knives and Running with the Devil. There's a Nick Cage Fishburne. That's a 2-for-1 on people who've done a few too many of these. Have you seen either of those movies as a matter of interest?
I've seen all the old knives,
Okay,
and once again, mediocre, which
there
is
you
a
go.
surprise.
Well, I think it's safe to say if something has a really, really strong cast, but you've never heard of it at all, that should send your spider sense tingling just a little bit, I think. So, Paul, I want to segue quickly into tip number 3, which is if you see poster face. What is poster face? Well, I hate to do it, but I'm going to use Bruce as an example because in one movie alone, 10 Minutes Gone, I pulled a few different posters for it, and you'll see a trend here. I don't you can't even call it bad Photoshop. It's when they were making a poster, but they didn't bother doing any photo shoot, anything. It really is a case of all of the budget has gone into getting the names that we got onto the poster. We're really happy. I'm not crapping on these movies. Like people, it's very hard to make a movie. These people make movies, and in this case, they got Michael Chiklis and Bruce Willis to be in their movie. Also, just little forewarning. If you look at the top of this poster, Paul, it says from the producers of Hostage and The Hurt Locker.
Yeah.
That's going to come up again in a little while. But there's poster number 1. Bruce Willis's face looks like it was animated on and slid slightly sideways while they were doing it. Like somebody dragged their hand across the keyboard.
And it's got so much filtering on it. It's unbelievable.
bad.
Like, yeah. Like and that's also a running theme of kind of filtering and photoshopped kind of faces. You've seen it in a few of the other posters that we've shown here.
Yeah.
But there's more example of it.
Well, I've thrown up the second one now. 10 Minutes Gone. Keep your enemies close. Again, Bruce Willis, Michael Chiklis. But the connection between head and body there is nothing short of uncannily freaky. And this one, I saved my favorite to last. Again, it's 10 minutes gone, or 10 minutes gone. No more loyalty among thieves. So it's even got a different tagline. I don't know if this was, as far as I know, these were all official quote unquote posters. But boy, oh boy, I don't know who that person is that's supposed to be Bruce Willis.
Yeah, the intern may have photoshopped or something like that, you know?
Yeah. So again, it kind of goes along with number 2. If you've got big stars, but if you want to double check your big stars in a movie you haven't heard, check out the poster. And if it looks like I made it, somebody who does stuff for YouTube only, then you should probably consider giving this a miss.
Yeah, and once again, it's not also just towards which goes obviously Bruce Willis or anything like that. You can see it. The Lawrence Fishburne, Nicolas Cage one. Nicolas Cage doesn't look like he is actually there. Which goes on the Harrison Ford, Gary Oldman, the Paranoia one. Gary Oldman, like it doesn't his suit and stuff like that look as well. So you can see these kind of small tweaks and stuff like that. That yeah, they haven't done an actual photo shoot. They haven't done any kind of
Yeah.
promotional kind of like you can see the difference there. Uh, like Nick Cage in Running with the Devil,
Hmm.
kind of one. It looks so kind of like I don't know. He doesn't look like he's meant to be there and stuff like that. Lawrence Fishburne looks good, but you can see in the old all the old knives. That's all nicely shot and everything like that. Like they've done
Yep.
promotional photography for it, kind of thing. So you can see the differences, and they kind of like they've taken a scene and they've kind of photoshopped it up for the poster rather than
Oh,
promotional material.
oh heck yeah. Um, and so we're halfway through. That's three out of our five. I think, Paul. I think we've got time to go for one more before the ads. And I think it's easy for me to put this as release date. There's your big concern, or big indicator. If something had a release date, you heard about it 3 years ago, and you're like, oh, that's going to be out in July. Yay, I'm looking forward to it. But then you hear, actually, no, they've moved it to October. Then, no, they've moved it to the next year. And I know everybody's going to go, oh, well, you see, with COVID and with strikes, yes, those have been exceptional things in the last couple of years that
Yeah.
have made things move. But even with that said, and Craven the Hunter is what I'm using on screen, it's had, I think it's onto its fifth
Yeah,
moved release
shift.
date. And I don't think it's finished moving yet. It's not a good sign. I think it may well end up getting moved out to what we all affectionately call one of the dump months. So I think its final resting place could end up being the end of January, 2025, before they stop moving it to try and work out where they're going to bury it, so no one does a Madam Web to them or a Morbius.
Yeah, yeah, like it's an interesting kind of predicament that you can have in it because like Dune had the same problem with it consistently moving its release date, but it was extreme circumstances
Yeah,
as it didn't want to release on the same day as a streaming service or anything like that. That's why they continued to move it. It was evident by what they were saying, what the marketing team and the studio were saying is like, oh, the reason we're moving this is because you know Delnu doesn't want us to release it at the same time as like we release it on streaming, so we're moving it and moving it. Craven hasn't had any kind of and the I will say this: if their excuse is we need to do reshoots, that's also a really big sign within the release date. If they're going like, oh, we've moved the release date because we need to do reshoots, because if you remember, Suicide Squad, the first one,
yes,
with Will Smith, they showed they had a trailer
they call it
which was
rock and roll
hilarious.
trailer. Yeah,
Oh yeah, yeah, they had an absolute amazing trailer, and then it turns out that every funny moment was there in that trailer, and they had to reshoot a load of scenes to kind of bring in more humor because it
yeah,
turns out that that's what everybody wanted, and you get worried about that kind of stuff. If they're about, oh, the reason we're moving the release date is because we need to do reshoots. It's kind of like you know what has gone wrong with this film that you're
yeah.
needing these kind of reshoots kind of thing.
Reshoots should be a couple of weeks, not necessitating entire like 4 to 6 month moves. Absolutely. And Paul, the second part of this one is if it's getting moved around and does end up being put in basically in the trash can months, so in the dump months, which I don't. When we've talked about this before, I don't think we fully. I don't fully believe that there are dump months anymore. I think that even though January, February, and September traditionally were kind of considered, and that's because people are broke after Christmas and after the holiday period. January isn't your number one. It's not your going out season, let's say, and even that includes going to the cinema. The Oscars have an effect on February box office and people's viewing habits. However, you have plenty, particularly since kind of the Deadpool and MCU days and all that kind of stuff, you've had plenty of movies come along and prove actually it's a good time to release and not have any competition. However,
Yeah.
it still is in people's minds, that they can put stuff out that wouldn't stand a chance at any other time of year, let's say. Few quick examples of what we're talking about. Paul, three of the greatest films of all time. Paul Blart Mall Cop,
Oh
which
yeah.
I again, a January release. Dirty Grandpa, similar, end of January. What do you do when you've got Robert De Niro and Zac Efron to lower themselves yet again. You dump that film out. Movie 43, one of the a famous ensemble movie that had it was a I don't know. Did you ever watch any of Movie 43? It has everybody in it, and it's like a series of shorts, a series of clips, and it was just terrible. It had a whole load of hype before somebody actually saw it, though. And I think there was a lot of us that were still excited going, Movie 43, good trailer. This looks like it could be fun. And then it got moved into an area of, we wish we hadn't made this movie. And sure enough, once people saw it, they realized it's maybe one of the worst movies ever made with an expensive cast. So yeah, dump months, my friend. They do exist in somebody's mind out there.
Yeah. So with this, we're going to talk on to the fifth one. We'll talk a little bit more about this one as well.
We'll do it just after the ads. But Paul, the last thing on this, Mickey 17, a film I was really looking forward to, has just had its release date moved, and it's already giving me the icky spider sense. So there you go. It's already happening to movies that I like. All right, we will be back after this break, and we will tell you the fifth and final thing, and have a look at the chat to see where we can save you all some time so you can avoid some crappy movies. Before there was Stranger Things. Before there was Chris Pine. There was Homebrew Quest. Hang on, that doesn't make any sense. Let me start again. YouTube is great for watching Hear Us Out, but what if you'd like a bit of D&D in your life? Homebrew Quest are a bunch of brilliantly creative Irish folks playing a homebrew Dungeons & Dragons campaign inspired by Irish mythology. But even more inspired by the brews they're drinking in each episode. Ireland's supposed to be the land of saints and scholars, but it's also got drinkers and YouTubers, one of which might look a tad familiar. So get yourself over to Homebrew Quest and join the adventure. Links in the description down below, or search term Homebrew Quest. Tell them Hear Us Out sent you. All right, Paul, we are back. Thank you, everybody, for enjoying that lovely ad. Paul, I want to check the comments before we go to our last one. Because Brian said, well, in reaction to good old Bruce Willis's, and I'll see if I can pull that up, the poor poster face of Bruce Willis. Brian says, Bruce looks like he's just seen something he's not supposed to see. Yeah, I think he definitely does have a very worried look on his face. But Brian also put in multiple script rewrites. That can be not a great sign, actually. Sometimes it can actually, again, the exception to the rule, it can be a really good idea. Because there are plenty of movies in the history of time that somebody's actually stopped and gone, you know what, we shouldn't do it. We need to fix this before we go any further. But you're right, sometimes it can indicate we didn't have our crap together in the first place, and now we're doing a fix-it job.
Yeah, like the rewrite one can be having multiple reasoning towards it, but it isn't always in a massive, like it isn't a I would say if in the flag system, I would say it's a yellow flag kind of thing. It's just like it's something I should be cautious about rather than overly worried about it being a terrible film, because sometimes when you're write a script and then you start actually filming it, you're kind of going, oh, some of this doesn't work. Kind of thing as you actually live film us, and you're just like, okay, we have to do some rewrites and stuff like that, kind of make things work better, and then it's a great film.
For sure.
I do believe the Matrix had that problem, the first one.
I think, yeah, I think you're recollecting the same as me. Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, it had a couple of rewrites, but it turns out to be an actually amazing, because it was just one of those films that it was very difficult to kind of film.
That's it. Sometimes you can turn good into great, but it's also very difficult to turn terrible into good. It's a much bigger jump. Again, comments, and I do want to be clear. And Kitty Cat, you mentioned at one point, it's one of Bruce's last films before he became too sick to work. Yeah, I do want to say that, using Bruce as an example was a tough choice, but it's because I have so much respect, and Paul, I know you love Bruce too, that it's a shame that he did so many movies that he probably wouldn't or shouldn't have been involved in normal circumstances. So his circumstances are slightly different, but he is one of the world's premier stars. So it's a stark example. That's the only reason he was used. But I'm glad you called it out. I'm very impressed that you called out that Dirty Grandpa is a and I'm going to name and shame here. Kitty Cat 738 Aubrey Plaza can do no wrong. I agree with that. But Dirty Grandpa, a guilty pleasure. All right, I'll give you the Aubrey Plaza of it all. I'll be soft in that one. Like that's fair enough. Because compared to the other movies on the list on screen, it's definitely a lot better.
I will say that the chemistry between Robert De Niro and Zac Efron does pull that movie through the trenches. But that's
Yeah,
all, that's it. Like, it's essentially just those two good actors playing off each other.
yeah,
That and Aubrey Plaza just being her weird like self as well
yeah.
pulls that movie as far as it can.
Which reminds me, I must watch Safety Not Guaranteed again, because it's an absolute masterpiece of a movie. So yeah, that's one we've never talked about on this channel, and I think it's one that we should find a reason to bring up somewhere.
I believe
Um,
I
have
think
we?
we have talked about it a
Oh,
little bit, but I think it was our surprisingly one of our surprisingly good sci-fi movies, kind of thing.
possibly. God, more than 5 years of this, I'm spotty on what we haven't covered. But yeah, there's things like that that we should promote. Um, one more or a couple of more comments real quick. The sequel to Megan 3 just got moved, or Megan 3. Megan, that's my brain, sorry. So Megan with the 3 in the middle of it. So that was start of last year, was
Yeah,
the Android doll horror style movie.
yeah.
So they'd already gone into production on a sequel and they've moved the release date. Probably not a good sign. Probably not a good sign. But who knows? Who knows?
It could be, yeah. Like until we find out, until you get more information, because it could be like conflicting schedules or something like that that they may have gone over time with filming and stuff like that. It's a yellow flag.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
until you get a little bit more notification about why it's being moved, and then it turns into a red flag.
If you can combine it with any of the others, I'll tell you what, wait until the month of release and then see if the review embargo lifts 30 seconds before
Yeah,
first showing. Kitty Cat, you've come in about Bruce again, and I appreciate that. Yeah, being offered money to do films, I'm with you. No judgment here. Milk it. For me, it's just a shame because I'd spent my entire life seeing every Bruce Willis movie because he was such a hero of mine, and it's a terrible legacy in the end. That there are like 40 films of his that I'm not gonna have seen. Um, and yeah, no, you weren't trying to pull us up on anything at all. Appreciate it. By the way, everybody, if you want to read good comments on YouTube videos, Kitty Cat's the person to go and check out. Goes back, and every time I'm going back looking at old comments, always, Paul, why are we the ones on camera doing this? All of our commenters are smarter, funnier, and more in tune with everything that's going on than we are. We're charlatans, I
that's
tell you.
it's
Charlatans.
probably the reason why everybody's smarter is because they're not on YouTube, and we're just like we're the dumb idiots who are just like we
Yeah.
can do this. We could be the benchmark kind of thing.
Perfect time to say that's great. Thank you. Thank you to everybody who comments. We're glad we could hold you back.
Yeah.
I'm glad we can drag you down with this. Yeah, safety not guaranteed, Brian. That's what it's called. Check it out. You'll absolutely love it. You don't need to know more about it. Don't bother reading about it. Don't bother learning about it. It'll only ruin the movie. Trust us. You'll enjoy Safety Not Guaranteed.
Uh, Patrick mentioned it to me. He mentioned very briefly. I watched it. Fantastic. Just to
There you
give it a thing.
It's all round good stuff. So Paul, let's go on to the last one. Just checking the comments. I often feel my students are smarter than me. Well, I doubt that somehow, but fair play. Imposter syndrome is real. Yeah, except it's not really imposter syndrome when it's true in our case. But it's our YouTube channel, so we can pretend that we know what we're talking about. Um,
My takeaway from that comment is the people who watch us are our students.
Yay!
That's
Oh,
probably the wrong thing to take away from that comment, but I'm gonna take it anyway.
you know what? Whatever we can get away with. So Paul, the last one, the fifth and final note to throw out there is: if everything else has started making you feel uneasy, here's the one that should cap it off. If you watch a trailer and you see either of these or something similar to it being said, and that's from the studio that brought you, or from the producers of, or executive, or not even executive, from producer Steven Spielberg, But you can tell by watching this, he's never had anything to do with it and has had some sort of financing arrangement that they can tangentially use his name. It's not a good sign. If you're watching a trailer and they want to big up that this is, from the writer of, or from the director of, or this is somebody, another film from the great visionary, you know, Christopher Nolan, that's fine. This is another Christopher Nolan film. But if you're watching something and they are struggling to pull names from other places to have some reflected glory, that's not a good sign. Because number one, a film will only resort to that if it actually feels it needs to in its marketing. And it wouldn't do it if it doesn't need to.
I will say that there are sometimes when Three Body Problem TV show, and it was done by the directors and producers of Game of Thrones. It's kind of one of those things where it's just like it was an add-on to a already benefit to the show,
Yeah.
kind of thing. As in, like, this is based on a really good book. We've got really, and word of mouth started spreading and stuff like that, and that started to show up a little bit more. It's more the fact is if you look at our other four, and then and this comes up as well. So it's just like, yeah, it keeps getting released, or the release date keeps getting moved, and then on the poster it goes from the producers of
Yeah.
The Martian. You're kind of going, okay, cool, but you keep moving it back, which means that you're definitely like those producers are doing a lot of heavy lifting, kind of thing. And it turns out that they only used your letterhead one time, and that's why their name is now on this.
Exactly. Also, and not to give producers a hard time, but there is an extreme difference between somebody being the writer or director, whereas there can be multiple producer credits, and it's one of those things where if you're just picking the most famous person involved, sometimes it can be a very thin link to that person. Like you say, they use the letterhead once and away you go. This, again, it's not one of those things. There are plenty of exceptions to this rule. It's more about one of those ones, how they do it. So if you're watching the trailer or you see the poster and it really does feel like a grasp for some reflected glory, and sometimes reflected glory from something that wasn't even that amazing. It's like from the people that brought you Moonfall. Well, Moonfall was actually a bit crap. Yeah, it was famous, but not for all the good things. So what you're saying is you've managed to finance another spectacle movie that's not actually executed that well. Yay. I'm going to save my time and I'm going to watch something else.
Yeah, like we're using these examples a lot more to kind of like, yeah, save time. We're not saying don't watch these movies in any kind of way. We're more kind of going, yeah, maybe kind of spend what little time that you have on things, and then if you get to go back on it. I enjoyed watching Paranoia. Not a good film. I enjoyed it for what it was, in the sense of I've never heard of this film. There seems to be big names in it. I'm going to watch this. Watched it and was just like, oh well, that was an event, kind of thing. But I'm not in any way sorry that I saw it. But that's kind of where we're coming out with these kind of things. But yeah, with the producer thing, if it's specifically producers, that's a real, like, if it's not from the director or creator or writer or something like that, if it's specifically producer, then you should already be cautious about it, kind of thing. Like even if it's like a film that they are really plugging, and none of the red flags in which have come up before, if they specifically choose producer, yeah, it's not a good.
It's not amazing. So look, there are hundreds of different warning signs. This was a little bit of a different episode for us. I think the important message is, and I want to get this out there to everybody who's got the same kind of mental tics that I do. I'm a completionist with franchises and things like that. So I'll end up watching entries that I know are going to be rubbish and going to be crap, and then I complain about not having enough time to see things that I should have. And Paul, you've given me a list of about 5,000 things that I'm never going to get round to all of them. Yet I'll still knowingly watch something that is mediocre at best, and that's disappointing. Which leads us to this point of maybe we should all start valuing our time more. And if you've never got to see 12 Angry Men, or there are people who are like, oh, I've never actually seen The Matrix, but I heard all the sequels are crap. Yeah, That's all true, but it still means you should see the first movie. It's great. You can then just stop there. Everybody else has taken the hit for you, and they can tell you just watch the first one and don't bother with the rest. So, whatever you take from these tips or from these hints that something might be bad, it's all about trying to gauge what do you want to avoid spending too much time on. And I myself was looking forward to Mickey 17. It's already tripped one of my tripwires. I'm now watching the other four, twitching away to see if Mickey 17 is going to be one of those things that I was excited about when it was announced. And by the time it comes out, I'm going to say, no, I'm not watching that until Paul watches it and tells me it's good. Because Paul's time I don't value at all.
No, I am immortal, so I have all the time in the world.
You're younger, so you may as well be immortal. I'm jealous.
Which is and if you do want Patrick to be able to get through his entire massive backlog of thousands of films and TVs, you should subscribe, which is and like this this video, which is but yeah, no, it's a hard fact because as we've talked about this in the sense that the quality over quantity ratio is slowly turning. We talked about how there was the golden age of TV shows and the golden age of movies and the amount of stuff that we're getting. But we've always warned people about this ratio changes eventually, where the fact is that we've now set, or sorry, we, as if I'm a part of the entertainment industry, the entertainment industry is now set a precedence where we're consuming more than we ever have. And the fact is that the attention span of the audience has shortened.
For sure.
Meaning that they need to grind out as much as they can. And the fact is that ratio slowly changes to just trying to get stuff out. And these are the flags in which you can point out things that you shouldn't be pointing your time on. And also we should be kind of trying to force the industry to more do quantity or quality stuff than quantity.
Yeah. I'm starting to feel really guilty because there is an argument that I've always wanted to make, art versus content. And there's a huge difference between those two. But then I realized we did this episode on the back of me talking about this with you, and I don't know how much of this is content because I'm definitely not going to call it art. So we're probably all guilty of it. But what I can say is thank you to everybody in the comments. Seriously, we do have the best commenters in all of YouTube land. And if you don't believe me, go and check out the comments on other videos, particularly from the people you can see they've already commented in this live stream tonight. Thank you so much. You make this all worthwhile. Paul, you make everything even more worthwhile. And I'm not watching Paranoia. I'm so glad you did. I now owe you a film. You get to pick a film that I will watch for an episode coming up. So make sure you pick a good, solid, mediocre one. Something
movie
that
43?
is... Oh, no, I've seen that.
Oh, damn.
If you can pick something that is so not good but so not bad that you're trapped in that middle bubble of it just wasn't. Was it anything? Was it? I was there. It was there. What happened?
Have you seen Battle for Earth, the John Travolta film?
No.
No.
Oh, Battlefield Earth.
Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
I've seen so many memes and sections from it that I feel like do I have to watch it? I promised him. Okay, upcoming sometime this year, a full 5-minute review of me and Battlefield Earth. I will finally watch his Scientology adjacent self-written fiction. Is that correct?
That is a loose term for adjacent.
Okay. Oh, really? Okay. Well, I look forward to it. Closing it out on the comments then. Paul will outlive us all. Yeah, I hope he does because, Paul, you're amazing. I haven't seen him in daylight for years. Hey, you're like... There's a vampire suggestion in there, Paul, somewhere. And I've just realized I don't think I've ever seen you in front of a mirror or in daylight. Well, not at least in about 10 years.
I really wish I had some kind of device like I could throw and smoke would be, and I could just replace it with a bat. We'll do it in post.
We'll do it in post, exactly. If this was a record, we would have just VFX'd that right in. Kitty Cat says, second year film students have an assignment called Film is Art. And as well they should. I love that as a title for an assignment. Always interesting submissions for that assignment. I can well imagine so. All right. To wrap this up then, thank you everybody. Please give us suggestions and comments. Keep them coming on what the red flags are for you. Any topics you'd like to see in the future. Other than that, Paul, I've been Patrick.
And I've been Paul.
And we've been Hear Us Out. And we will see you next time, film fans.
And I'll see you in 500 years.
I'm going to sharpen a stick and call around to Paul's house. Bye.
Garlic. I love garlic.
You're ruining the vampire thing. They don't. Bye.